Over to the journalist Priyanka Sinaja.
Good evening, everyone. Before we start this very exciting and interesting session, I'd request for the clip, the teaser, to be played so that everyone's like on the same page and you guys know what we are talking about. So if we can just have that. But before that, we're going to have a bit of a Q&A about what can we expect. Now, the storyteller is based on Satyajit Ray's, the acclaimed, renowned, legendary filmmaker Satyajit Ray's short story in Bangla. And it's an intriguing story because it's about a storyteller. These days, everyone's a storyteller. But what does it really mean to be a storyteller? What prompted you to take this story and turn it into a film, and many more questions. So I'm going to start with you, sir, Mr. Mahadevan. Please tell us, why did you pick on this story of Satyajit Ray's story to make a film? Was it, was it daunting?
Good evening, everyone. Yes, daunting is the word I would use because paying tribute to a master like Satyajit Ray is no mean task, and it was a big challenge. But I wanted to take it up because, of course, number one, we were celebrating the centenary year of Satyajit Ray. And secondly, I think it was his cinema that influenced not just me, but all of us Indians, filmmakers, audiences across the world as to what stories and storytelling can achieve and what cinema can achieve if seen with a different eye and a different perspective. So I did take a look at the original Bengali story, which was called Golpo Bole Tarini Khoro. And Tarini Khuro was a character that Satyajit Ray created like Feluda, and he used to tell stories. And it was very interesting because this film really could not be made in Bengali. It had to be made in Hindi. And so I went up to Mr. Sandeep Ray and requested him for the rights. And that was the most, I would say, the most tricky part because Mr. Ray, Sandeep Ray, he confessed that he never gives away the rights of his father's works. And that's when I had to tell him that, I've literally come here with my life in your hands, because making a film as a tribute is all very well and very easy to say. But will the film really be a tribute? Will it really turn out to be emulating the great master, or even close to emulating the great master? So I'd like to make a film that if probably Ray would have been alive, probably he would have made it, in this fashion. So it's a challenge, and of course the world would be out with swords if we didn't reach up to their expectations, because this is the first feature film from the Ray stable that would come out after his demise. So considering all that, I think Sandeep Ray was very kind enough to give me the rights to make this film. And ever since, it has been a very, very long, thought-provoking journey for me, because at every stage, I had to make sure that we weren't making any mistake or, going away from from Ray's point of view and Ray's mind of how he would have conceived the story. It's a very fascinating story. It's something that he wrote after an incident that I don't want to elaborate on now, but it is a satire. It is Ray's stinging humor and a certain kind of understatement and subtlety that comes through with, a lot of, what would I say? A lot of Ray's genius in it. So it was, like you said, a daunting task to translate this into visuals. And of course, my actors made it extremely simple for me and simpler than I thought, because the kind of work and thought that they put into these characters, I think Ray would have also approved.
Thank you for that. This is obviously a labor of love. It's been produced by Geo Studios, Purpose Entertainment, and Quest Films that have come together to present it. And I believe it's going to Busan International Film Festival very soon, along with a whole lot of other international film festivals. So, when you started putting this project together, and I'm going to come to the actors as well, because they bring like such an important, charm to this particular story. What was that journey like? Was it difficult for you to kind of put this project together, or did it happen, did everything fall into place very quickly?
No, it did not fall into place quickly. Films like these and thoughts like these are very difficult to, I'm not using the word sell in a wrong way, but to actually convince a producer or a funder or someone to come on board. And of course, when we did have Quest Films on board first, and then Geo coming to back them up, I couldn't have asked for anything better, because they understood the project, they were excited about the project, and the same passion with which the whole creative team was working, I found that passion in them. They wanted to make this film at any cost, and it's rare to find producers of this kind today who would back a project purely on the strength of conviction. And the fact that it is in competition in the Kim Ji-seok section in Busan, it only sort of, underlines the fact that we got the right people to back the right project.
It's interesting that from the Satyajit Ray universe, this film is being made on Tarini Kuro, because we know Feluda pretty well, through the stories and through movies. But this is a lesser known character, and now we have a film about it with not just an interesting protagonist who's a storyteller, who talks about who spins his experiences, real world experiences, life experiences into stories. There is also a very interesting antagonist in this. I'd like the actors now to sort of talk a little bit about what are they playing in this movie, and as much as you would like to reveal, and what was it like being a part of this world, this character's world, which is full of stories. There are different kinds of intrigues that are, sort of occurring. And they're not perhaps larger than life, but they're equally riveting, or maybe perhaps more so. So Tannishtha and Adil, would love to have your perspective.
Well, I play a librarian in the film. And this is my fourth collaboration with Anantji. I've always loved and enjoyed working with him. So this is a story that he actually discussed with me a few years back that he wanted to do. So I know the entire process of how he sort of took the rights, and then everybody else came on board. The producers came on board, and slowly how it sort of shaped. So I come into the film as a librarian in a very interesting manner in the storyteller's character, which is played by Paresh Ji. Beyond that, I don't want to reveal much, because the story in itself is a very intriguing story with certain twists and turns, and there's a underlying humor throughout the film, and all the characters also have a sort of tongue-in-cheek humor, which when you watch the film, that you witness it as the story unfolds. So beyond that, I wouldn't like to reveal much, apart from the fact that yes, also excited that it's in Busan. Even with Busan International Film Festival, I personally have a very strong connection, because I've had many films through the years, including my debut film as a director. So I'm really excited that Storyteller is having its world premiere in competition in Busan. Yeah.
Adil, tell us a little bit about your role, and then so you'll have to tell us about Mr. Paresh Rawal's role because he's playing the central protagonist, Tarini Kuro. So yes, Adil.
Good evening, everybody, and it's a pleasure and honor to be here this evening. It's when he approached me, this is the second time we are collaborating, and I grew up with Satyajit Ray's stories since my childhood, and never thought in my dream that I would be part of one of the stories which would be made into a film. And I would be asked to play a role, and that itself is a privilege and an honor to play that role. And so, what I liked about the story is the ambiguity which is revealed at the end of the story, which I can't reveal. Something which is to do with right and wrong or good or bad, you know, so that always attracts me. Something which is open-ended, you don't know the answer, and it forces you to question yourself like, oh, okay, is this right or is this not right? Is this wrong? So it's bordering that pendulum of right and wrong, spectrum of right and wrong that we generally believe in a binary world that we live in today. So in that world, to have a story of such nature and so simply and so gently told and with such wit and humor, which I think is a pleasure and a feast for an actor to breathe in life into it, and the most interesting and probably the best part of the film is that when an actor directs an actor, and I completely trust him. So if he says, done, I would like, can I? No, it's done. Then I trust you in that. Because he knows me, and though we haven't worked much, like you have worked with Tannishtha, too many films, and you haven't cast me on those ones, but it's okay. But he has seen my work, I have seen his work, you know, since long time, so we know each other very well, and it was a pleasure working with Pareshji. Pareshji being such a veteran actor, we have almost grown up seeing him in a way. And, most of our interactions had been extremely... am I allowed to tell what role he played and what role I played? Yeah. So I play this Gujarati businessman, and Pareshji plays the Bengali storyteller, which is a casting coup in a way, you know. I come from that part of the world, from the East. I grew up reading in literature, Bengali and Assamese. I'm an Assamese myself. So when he told me this story, I thought, oh, he's going to cast me, you know, in that role of Bengali. And I'm like, oh, really? That was again challenging for me, and also fun, a lot of fun. And I think for any actor, she would vouch for it, and I'm sure that when you don't know how to play a role, then it becomes more interesting for me. So I'm grateful and honored that you have cast me, sir. Thank you very much. And we haven't met in the film. And so, thank you.
So after that casting course, you'll have to tell us a little bit about Mr. Paresh Rawal's role since he's not here. So you'll have to tell the audience a little bit about that.
I want to add to what Adil just said about anti-type casting. Everyone expects Paresh to play the Gujarati, and of course someone like Adil who knows the Bengali language so well. But it was amusing on the set to see the two of them helping each other with the language, you know. So when he had to speak in Gujarati, Paresh actually told him it's this way. And when the Bengali words had to come in, or when he had to say something, it was the other way around. So that was a camaraderie that was, absolutely memorable. So like, you know now that Paresh Rawal plays Tarini Kuro, the Bengali storyteller. A storyteller, not a story writer. And that is very vital, very vital clue in the film, because why is he not writing his own stories? because of a certain fear, because of a certain complex, because of the fear that he may be criticized and not acknowledged by the world. And that is what I think Ray is trying to tell all of us through this film. That do not in any way underestimate yourself. Do not in any way keep the doors open for external elements to come in and destroy what is rightfully yours. Do not be sort of, enveloped in a complex or an insecurity that could end up being, frightfully, disastrous later, and it might be too late to repair. So that is what I think what really attracted me towards this film. And when I went up to Mr. Paresh Rawal to tell him that I'm making this film, there was this childlike excitement. I mean, after all these years, and this was, I quote unquote, he said, after all these years, I've been given a part that I'm so excited about, that I so want to do, that he stood by me till the time we found our producers. Any other actor would probably have sort of gotten impatient and said, oh, is this man really making this film at all? Or is he just sort of, taking me on a ride? So I'm extremely grateful to the faith that Paresh had in this project as much as the producers had. And that is what came together finally to create this result that you just had a glimpse of. So Paresh, with all the complexities and the layering of his characters, the two of them would just get together, sit down and read. And it felt like a play rehearsal, when two actors would just read, say the lines, then find the underlining meaning in those words, and then not bring it up to an obvious point and just leave it at a point which is so subtle and understated that you might probably want to end up seeing the film a second time to actually decipher what those clues were and why this character spoke the way he or she did at that point of time. And that is the cleverness of what Mr. Ray has written. So, it really helped, and it actually helped in getting actors so excited that they all felt that, after a long time, a role that could sort of, push them to their limits. They've got a role of that kind. And of course, being in a Satyajit Ray film is a dream even which Mr. Amitabh Bachchan had.
It's very interesting that you touched upon what, some of the unique things, unique qualities that Mr. Satyajit Ray's storytelling kind of brings to the table, whether it's in the form of a short story or his movies. So when you're working on a film like this, what are the challenges creatively? And what are the what are the bits that you really enjoy as actors, as a director, to kind of create? Because we were speaking about this a little earlier, that the world that he created was not like hyper-realistic. It was just human, it was gentle, it was real, it didn't have gimmicks, it didn't resort to, technical sort of daredevilry. It's purely on the story and the actors and the director as instruments of conveying that story as it unfolds in life. So, as creative people, would love to know what that process was like for each of you, the challenge of it, the joy of it, whatever it may have been. So anyone is free to jump in.
Well, I'd like to say that after doing 18 to 20 feature films, I thought this was the final test. And I felt as though I was doing my first film. And it really, really called for a lot of restraint, a lot of thought, and a lot of, what would one say, when you pay a tribute to a man like Satyajit Ray, it had better be at least average, if not good. So that challenge which came in, along with this entire script and the project, is something that kept me on tenterhooks. And I was very, very, very nervous making this film, fearing that I might, make one false step and destroy the image of Ray in the world. So that is the kind of challenge that this film pushed me onto.
Adil, Tanishta, anything that you guys would like to add in?
I think, as a Bengali, I would like to just talk a little bit about Satyajit Ray. And I had not read this particular series of stories before actually Anandji gave me, this story, and I didn't know about it. But I mean, having said that, there's always, outside of Bengal, I think in Bengal, many people know many of his stories and other sides of Satyajit Ray, apart from the very serious art house filmmaker that, he was. Right. But outside of Bengal, most people viewed him as this person who made very serious art house films about villages and poor people in India, and which is absolutely such a misconception, because he never made films about the poor. All his films are psychological. All his films are about the middle class or the upper middle class. One of his most celebrated films is Charulata. And even this particular story, it's a humorous take on storytelling. And it's kind of critiquing your own self as well as storytellers, as filmmakers. We all are different forms of storytellers, right? Like right from the childhood, my 6-year-old daughter also loves telling stories. We all are storytellers in many ways. And this whole oral tradition of India, which is celebrated so much in our culture is not a written culture. And I mean, that's what Anandji said, that he was not a story writer, the main protagonist of the film. So he picks up that whole idea of the basis of Indian folk culture, Indian epic culture, and tells a very humorous story about storytellers and stories, and how stories are passed on, how things change, and what is storytelling all about. So I think this film would also sort of transcend that cliched idea about Satyajit Ray, who's viewed as this very serious, heavy, sort of art house filmmaker. He wrote so many things about children, and a lot of, detective stories. A lot of his stuff is very mainstream, actually. So that's another thing that sort of, for me as an artist and as a Bengali, allured me towards this project, that, the world is also going to see, I mean, mainly also different parts of our own country will see this other side of this great Indian filmmaker and a storyteller.
It's so interesting.